And now to help us look at this business of technology, we're joined by Reid, head of CATA, the Canadian Advanced Technology Alliance. Good to see you and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I hope the tech gods were good to you.
Indeed, there were some interesting tech items, no doubt about it. Now, I want to start our discussion today with tech jobs. Here in Ottawa, we have not seen tech jobs come back. Some have called it the recovery, the jobless tech recovery. Other centres are seeing jobs. What's your take on where we're going to be in 2011?
Well, you know, a 16% haircut over the year in terms of jobs, but, you know, I think that's part of the restructuring. I mean, that's the Nortel situation. But I really think, you know, next year we're going to see some of those sectors, mobility, healthcare, IT security, you're going to see a spurt. So I'm pretty buoyant for the creation of jobs for next year.
And not just in Ottawa, but across the country, you see Canada being well positioned?
Well, certainly, even last year in Toronto, Montreal, Kitchener-Waterloo, some significant growth. So we really are, you know, ready, set, go.
And what's the big issue going to be? Is it going to continue to be, how do I get money to build my company?
Well, there's two things. First of all is the customer. We were happy to see that the government is looking at themselves as a marketplace. And of course, the reference account is important. The second most important thing is the money. So venture funds, looking at transforming some of the public funds. We have to do everything in our power to pump more VC funds to those emerging and new companies.
You were out in New Brunswick recently speaking to their burgeoning tech sector, and it strikes me they're almost an example of what many communities across the country are doing, and they're looking at tech and saying, that's a growth sector, I should be putting some emphasis on it.
Well, that's certainly what the Premier said, and you know, a lot of energy in that community. They created the iZone. You know, I'm at one company that's doing an application for an automotive company, security being translated into 17 languages. So suddenly we've got a Canadian technology from Fredericton going into 17 international markets. Shows you what you can do in a small marketplace.
Looking at 2011 in general terms for the tech sector, do you see it as a replay of 2010, or can we see or expect or hope for some significant growth and upswing and uptake?
Well, I think the upswing is mobility apps. And if you don't have one, you should create one. And if you watch how people you know, behave, certainly in Canada, we're the top users of the internet. More and more people are going to look to mobility applications. Those can be created in Canada and sold to the world. You look at healthcare, another significant market. A lot of technologies and services. IT security is another growth market. And of course, green. So those new areas, you know, we'll see some flagships, we'll see some significant growth. So I think next year can be a very good year for Canadian high tech.
I remember you a year ago talking about those segments, and we have seen growth. I guess some people would just say it'd be nice to see even more growth in Canada.
Well, I think they're figuring out the money now. So once we get those capital flows going, you know, we solve that 116 certificate issue. Some of the public funds are looking at how they can create some technology, you know, resources to help with growth. So if that happens, you know, I think you could see an acceleration of the whole sector.
And there's supposed to be a digital strategy announced with the federal budget. Probably no money, but maybe at least some kind words to be said to the tech sector. And I'll tie back into what we were just talking about a few minutes ago, and that was the huge interest by Canadians in anything web-based, leading the world. Should the feds and should business be taking note of that?
Well, I mean, that's the brand. If we're one of the top nations in the use of the internet, if I'm any business, I want to see how I can present my brand, my opportunity, my value to that online marketplace. So you've got a lot of customers there, and anytime you design for the Canadian marketplace, you automatically design for the global marketplace. So you can ramp up pretty quickly if you get the app right.
Right. And briefly, your top priority as CATA, as an organization?
Well, it hasn't changed. Innovation Nation, 26 recommendations. The government addressed 3 or 4 of those, so they only have 22 left. They do that, we're into a real good tech world.
Okay, very good. Reid of CATA, thanks very much for your time.